The Concordance vessel Luminous Inquiry hung in the darkness at the edge of an unremarkable solar system, its crystalline hull reflecting the dim light of a yellow dwarf star. First in sight, Overseer Civic stood on the observation deck, 6 limbs folded in contemplation as the ship's sensors gathered data on the third planet of this unexplored system. "Preliminary assessment?" Civic asked, compound eyes shifting to regard examination specialist Raleigh. Riles's skin rippled with professional confidence, bioluminescent patterns flickering in the subdued light of the bridge. Standard carbon cycle life world, Overseer. Nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, extensive biosphere, multiple artificial satellites in orbit, primitive electromagnetic emissions, assessment, early technological sentience, development grade 6 or 7. Livic's antenna twitched. Development grade 6 or 7 meant the species had developed radio technology and basic orbital capabilities, nothing remarkable. The Concordance had catalogued hundreds of such worlds in this spiral arm alone. They were to be monitored, but otherwise left undisturbed until they reached the technological and ethical thresholds required for first contact. "Mark for standard observation protocol," Civic ordered. "We'll deploy monitoring probes and—" Overseer. Channel operator Mizit interrupted, her voice sack pulsing with urgency. "Detection alert. An object has just entered the system at extreme velocity." The Civic's exoskeletal plates clicked in mild surprise. "Source unknown. Overseer. It emerged from—" Mazit paused, running secondary confirmation algorithms. "It emerged from nowhere, Overseer. One moment empty space, the next present." Civic felt a flutter of unease ripple through his central ganglion. "Impossible. Check for sensor malfunctions. Systems functioning at optimal parameters," Mzit confirmed. "The object is decelerating rapidly. Current trajectory suggests it will achieve orbit around the third planet within 1 rotation. Classification. Working on it, Overseer. Preliminary analysis suggests an artificial construct, size approximately 600 meters in length. Material composition, unclear." The Civic's thinking bladders filled with decision fluid. This changed the parameters of their mission. A grade 6 or 7 civilization should not possess the technology to achieve interstellar travel, let alone the capabilities Mzit described. "Bring us to observation distance," Civic ordered. "Full stealth protocols. I want detailed scans of that object." 26 units later, the Luminous Inquiry maintained position 3 light minutes from Earth. Its quantum displacement field, rendering it effectively invisible to conventional detection methods. The object that had caught their attention now orbited the blue planet, occasionally adjusting its position with bursts of energy that defied the Concordance's understanding of propulsion physics. "Scans complete, Overseer," Riles announced, projecting the results onto the central holomatter display. "The object appears to be a vessel of some kind. Construction materials include several elements we recognize and others that do not conform to known atomic structures." The image rotated slowly before them, a massive angular shape of dark metal, with protruding structures that could be sensor arrays or weapon emplacements. No aesthetic considerations were evident in its design. It was purely functional, almost predatory in its silhouette. "Life signs?" Civic inquired. "Yes, Overseer. Approximately 2,000 individual organisms, bipedal, endoskeletal, carbon-based." Rielza's voice held a note of confusion, but they match the dominant species of the planet below. "These are not visitors. They are natives." A ripple of disquiet passed through the bridge crew. The Civic felt his exoskeleton tighten involuntarily. "Impossible," Sub-Overseer Kelzan interjected. "The evolutionary timeline doesn't support such advancement. They should be at least 6,000 years from achieving controlled quantum emergence technology." "Nevertheless," Rielzan continued, "genetic markers confirm they are indigenous to the planet. Moreover, our analysis of their orbital constructs shows much cruder technology than this vessel. The technological disparity is significant. The Zevik's mind raced through possibilities. Could they have been uplifted by another spacefaring species? No evidence of external influence, Mizit responded, and the concordance records no contact protocols initiated in this sector. Then Overseer, Defense Specialist Vire interrupted, voice sac pulsing with alarm. The vessel is scanning us. Silence fell across the bridge. The luminous inquiry's displacement field made them undetectable to all known sensor technologies. Nothing should be able to locate them, much less actively scan their systems. Impossible, the Zevik whispered. Confirmed, Fazeri insisted, appendages working frantically across control surfaces. They're using some form of tachyon-based detection system. It's penetrating our displacement field as if it weren't there. Evasive protocols, Thivik ordered, feeling the first tendrils of genuine fear creep into his nervous system. Repositioned. Too late, Rory announced. They've locked onto us. Their vessel is changing course. Intercept trajectory. On the display, the dark human ship pivoted with impossible grace, accelerating toward their position. Its velocity increased beyond anything their calculations suggested possible for a craft of that mass. How are they moving like that? Kazan demanded. The energy requirements alone would. Multiple energetic reactions detected within the vessel, Ridials reported, voice tight with scientific confusion. They appear to be actively manipulating gravitational fields. Zevik's mind struggled to process this information. Gravity manipulation was theoretical even for the Concordance, one of the eldest civilizations in the known galaxy. If these humans had somehow mastered it, time to intercept, he asked. At current acceleration, 17 units. Vizir responded. Open a channel, Zevik decided. Standard first contact protocols. Transmit basic mathematical sequences, followed by Overseer. Riddles interrupted, his voice vibrating with shock. I've completed deep scans of their vessel. You need to see this. The holomatter display shifted, showing cross-sections of the human ship. The Zivik stared, his compound eyes struggling to interpret what they were seeing. That can't be right, he finally managed. Run the scans again. I've run them 3 times, Radlias confirmed. These readings are accurate. The display showed massive chambers within the vessel filled with what appeared to be matter in an impossible state, simultaneously existing and not existing, controlled but unstable, contained by fields that shouldn't function. What am I looking at? Specialist, Civic demanded. They appear to be antimatter containment chambers. Overseer. Reels's voice was barely audible. The humans are using antimatter as a power source, and as weapon. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Antimatter was the most volatile substance in the universe, its production and containment beyond even the Concordance's capabilities, except in microscopic quantities under the most controlled conditions. Estimation of containment volume, Zevik asked, dreading the answer. Approximately 47 kilograms, Overseer. Kelazan made a sound of disbelief. If that containment failed, the resulting explosion would vaporize everything within a several light-minute radius. Reels finished, including their own vessel, including their home planet if detonated in close proximity. They're carrying enough destructive potential to annihilate their own world. Zizivik's voice held horror and incomprehension. What kind of species would create such a thing? Before anyone could respond, Mazit's voice cut through the silence. Overseer, they're hailing us. The holomatter display shifted again, now showing a visual feed from the human vessel. A single bipedal figure stood in what appeared to be a command center. It wore dark coverings with symbolic markings that likely denoted rank or function. Its face was hairless except for the top of its head, the skin a pale pink beige. Two forward-facing eyes regarded them with an expression none of the Concordance crew could interpret. "This is Captain Eleanor Chen of the United Earth Alliance vessel Prometheus," the human announced, its words automatically translated by the Luminous Inquiry's systems. "We have detected your presence and capabilities. You are currently in restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Thuzivik stepped forward, forcing calm into his voice. "I am First Insight Overseer Thuzivik of the Concordance vessel Luminous Inquiry. We are a peaceful exploration and contact delegation. We mean no harm." The human's expression didn't change. "You've been scanning our planet. Explain." "Standard exploration protocols," Thivik responded. "We catalog new life-bearing worlds. We had no knowledge of your interstellar capabilities." Captain Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. "And yet you approached under stealth technology and continued surveillance without announcing your presence." The Zivik felt trapped between protocol and the growing realization that they were facing a species far more dangerous than initial assessments suggested. "We observe non-contacted species from a distance to avoid cultural contamination," he explained. "It is our standard procedure when—" "Your standard procedure resembles espionage from our perspective," Chen interrupted. "We've detected multiple communication attempts directed at our orbital facilities." "Explain." Civik's antennae flattened against his head in alarm. They had deployed only passive monitoring probes, nothing that should have been detectable. "There must be a misunderstanding," he began. "No misunderstanding," Chen stated flatly. "We tracked your probes. We intercepted and analyzed your transmissions. You've been cataloging our defense systems." Behind the Zivik, Zir quietly activated defensive protocols, bringing the Luminous Inquiry's protective fields to standby. The action didn't go unnoticed. "I wouldn't advise hostile action," Chen warned, her tone unchanged. "Our weapons are locked on your position. Your displacement technology doesn't conceal you from our targeting systems." "We have no hostile intent," the Zivik insisted. "The Concordance is a peaceful—" The human made a sharp gesture, and the visual feed expanded to show more of the command center. Behind Captain Chen stood rows of other humans at various control stations. The display shifted again, showing external views of the Prometheus as massive panels along its hull slid open, revealing what could only be weapon emplacements. "Final warning," Chen stated. "Power down your defensive systems and prepare for boarding inspection, or we will consider you a hostile entity." Kelzan moved close to the Zivik, voice low. "Overseer, we cannot allow them aboard. Concordance protocols forbid sharing technology with specialist Ralzades," Thivik interrupted, never taking his eyes from the human's impassive face. "What would happen if they decided to fire on us?" Relz's voice quavered slightly. "Based on the energy readings from their weapons systems, our defensive fields would not withstand a direct hit." Thivik felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on his exoskeleton. The safety of his crew, the sanctity of Concordance protocol, the unprecedented nature of this encounter, all of it rested on his decision. "Very well, Captain Chen," he finally said. "We will comply with your request." As the transmission ended, the Zivik turned to his stunned crew. "Prepare for boarding protocols. Secure all databases. Restrict access to critical systems." "Overseer," Bazera protested, "you cannot seriously be considering letting these primitives aboard our vessel." "Look at the scans again, Defense Specialist," Thivik replied grimly. "These are not primitives. Whatever these humans are, they've achieved in centuries what took the Concordance millennia." On the display, the human vessel grew larger as it approached, its angular, predatory shape blotting out the stars. "Examination Specialist," Thivik said quietly to Ralz's, "your assessment of the psychological implications of their technology." Ralz's skin had paled to a sickly translucence. A species that carries world-ending weapons as standard armament, that casually manipulates the fundamental forces of the universe, that advances at such an accelerated rate. He paused, struggling to form the words. "Overseer, I believe we may be in the presence of something unprecedented." "Clarify," Thizivik demanded. "A species that evolved not through cooperation, as the Konkan did, but through competition, through conflict." Ralza's voice dropped lower. "The historical pattern suggests a terrifying possibility. These humans, they may have achieved their advancement, not despite violence, but because of it." As the Prometheus drew alongside the luminous inquiry, dwarfing the Concordance vessel with its bulk, Thizivik watched theological advisor Zivizix back away from the display. The advisor's religious gesture, a complex movement of all 6 limbs that hadn't been seen on a Concordance vessel in generations, sent a chill through Thizivik's central nervous system. Zivizix was praying. The boarding ramp between the vessels created a stark visual divide. The crystalline, organically flowing architecture of the luminous inquiry meeting the angular, darkened metal of the human ship Prometheus. Thizivik stood rigidly at the junction point, all 6 limbs held in formal diplomatic posture, flanked by Sub-Overseer Kazine and Theological Advisor Zivizix. Captain Eleanor Chen emerged from the shadowed interior of her vessel, stepping onto the ramp with military precision. 2 humans followed. A tall, dark-skinned male with close-cropped hair and a smaller female, whose face was marked with a network of illuminated neural implants visible beneath translucent skin. "I am Captain Eleanor Chen," she announced, her voice steady and measured. "This is Major Okonkwo, my security chief, and Dr. Sato, our xenobiologist." The Zivik performed the Concordance greeting gesture, manipulating his translucent primary limbs in the pattern that signified peaceful intent. "First in sight, Overseer," the Zivik, speaking for the Concordance, "we welcome you, though these circumstances are unconventional." Captain Chen's expression remained impassive, but her eyes catalogued everything: the crystalline architecture, the bioluminescent patterns pulsing through the corridor walls, the unusual physiology of the aliens before her. Unconventional is one word for it, trespassing might be another. Behind Thizivik, Kazan's exoskeleton stiffened, bioluminescent patterns flaring with suppressed emotion. Thizivik felt the familiar sensation of his second-in-command's agitation through their weak telepathic bond, a mixture of indignation and fear. "Our presence here follows established concordance protocols," Thizivik explained, gesturing for the humans to follow as he led them toward the vessel's central chamber. "We observe, we catalog, we assess developmental stages. It is how we have operated for 12,000 years." Dr. Sato's implants flashed briefly. 12,000 years, she repeated, her voice betraying genuine interest. "Your civilization has been spacefaring for that long?" "Our interstellar age began approximately 12,000 of your years ago," Zivizix interjected, religious markings pulsing gently on his carapace. "The Concordance itself was established 9,000 years ago, unifying 17 sentient species under common philosophical and ethical principles." Major Okonkwo's hand never strayed far from the weapon holstered at his side. "And those principles include spying on developing worlds?" The corridor opened into the luminous inquiry's central chamber, a vast dome where quantum-entangled crystals formed living computational arrays, processing data and projecting it into 3-dimensional displays that filled the space. Several other crew members worked at various stations, their movements deliberate and precise. "Not spying," Zivik corrected, observing. "The Concordance has encountered over 300 sentient species at various stages of development. We have protocols to prevent cultural contamination until species reach sufficient technological and ethical thresholds." Captain Chen's eyes narrowed. "And who determines these thresholds?" "The founding principles of the Concordance," Zivik replied, "established through millennia of peaceful cooperation and ethical advancement." Chen exchanged a look with Major Okonkwo that Thizivik couldn't interpret. "Show me what you've learned about us," she demanded. Fizivic hesitated only briefly before nodding to Rizals, who activated the central display. A three-dimensional rendering of Earth appeared, surrounded by data streams detailing atmospheric composition, biodiversity metrics, and technological development assessments. "Your world shows signs of ecological stress," Rails explained professionally. "Atmospheric carbon concentrations elevated 38% above pre-industrial levels, ocean acidification approaching critical thresholds, biodiversity decline accelerating. These are common patterns for species in developmental stages 6 through 8. And yet you've achieved technological capabilities that should be impossible at your current developmental stage," Kazan added, unable to keep a note of accusation from his voice. "Antimatter containment, gravity manipulation, quantum emergence technology. These are advancements the Concordance predicted would take thousands of years of steady development." "You've been busy," Chen remarked dryly. "How did you achieve such rapid advancement?" Zivitz asked, religious markings pulsing with genuine curiosity. "The pattern defies all established models of technological progression." Dr. Sato smiled for the first time, a small, tight expression. "Necessity primarily. And competition." "Competition?" Pezovic inquired. "Between nations, corporations, ideologies," Major Okonkwo explained. "Humans have a talent for turning almost anything into a contest." Pezovic exchanged glances with Ralzai, whose exoskeleton had paled slightly at this confirmation of their earlier hypothesis. A species that advanced through competition rather than cooperation was an anomaly in their experience, potentially dangerous, unpredictable. "And the antimatter weaponry?" Kezanarn pressed. "What necessity drove the development of world-ending armaments?" Captain Chen's expression hardened. "The same necessity that leads us to question the motives of advanced aliens conducting authorized surveillance of our home world." The tension in the chamber intensified. Thizumbrick felt waves of anxiety emanating from his crew, their telepathic emissions becoming harder to filter. "Captain Chen," he said carefully, "the Concordance has no hostile intent toward humanity. Our mission is purely observational." "Then you won't mind sharing your findings," Chen replied. "All of them." In the secure communications chamber of the Luminous Inquiry, Civic convened an emergency meeting with the ship's senior staff, while the human delegation was escorted to guest quarters. "They're demanding access to all our data on their species," he stated, his voice tight with stress. "Their captain has implied that refusal would be considered evidence of hostile intent." "We cannot comply," Kelzan insisted immediately. "Concordance protocols explicitly forbid sharing observational data with pre-integration species. The contamination risks are incalculable." Relalaz's skin rippled with anxiety. The humans already possess technology that should be millennia beyond their reach. If we add Concordance knowledge to their advancement curve, they could threaten the entire sector within decades. Vien Virist grimly. Zivizix had been unusually quiet since the humans' arrival, his religious markings pulsing in complex patterns that suggested deep contemplation. "There is another consideration," he finally said. "The humans' developmental pattern suggests they evolved in an environment of constant threat and competition. Their psychology will be fundamentally different from Concordance species." "Meaning?" Zevic prompted. "Meaning they may interpret our unwillingness to share information as preparation for conflict," Zivizix explained. "If they evolved in a state of perpetual competition, they may be incapable of conceiving of our actions in any other context." Silence fell as the implications sank in. "Options?" Civic finally asked. Beer's defensive plates shifted subtly. "I've analyzed their vessels' capabilities, while their weapon systems are concerning. They appear to have vulnerabilities in their quantum shielding matrix. A precisely targeted pulse from our main emitter could temporarily disable their systems, creating an opportunity to break orbit and contact the Concordance defense fleet." "You're suggesting we attack them?" Pacific asked incredulously. "I'm suggesting we create an escape opportunity," Viard Sari clarified. "The humans have effectively taken us hostage in our own vessel, Defense protocols authorize measured response in such situations. Kazan's antennae vibrated with agreement. The threat these humans represent cannot be overstated, Overseer. Their technological advancement curve is unprecedented. Their psychological profile suggests inherent aggression. Their demands violate our most sacred protocols. The Zivix, thinking bladders filled with decision fluid as he weighed the options. Examination specialist Rizal's assessment. Relzals hesitated. From a purely scientific perspective, the humans represent an anomaly that warrants further study under controlled conditions. Their technological acceleration defies all evolutionary models. That's not an answer to my question, the Vic pressed. I believe defensive action may be justified, Rawls admitted reluctantly. If the humans gained access to concordance observational databases, they could advance decades in mere years. The Zevik turned to the final member of his senior staff, theological advisor. Zivizix's religious markings had dimmed to a somber blue. I must note for the record that I witnessed multiple signs of the great pattern in the humans' arrival. Their vessel emerged precisely at the conjunction of the third planet's third rotation and the system's passage through the galactic equilibrium point. Kelzan made a dismissive gesture. Religious superstition has no place in tactical decisions, advisor. Nevertheless, Zivizix continued calmly, the statistical probability of such a conjunction occurring randomly is approximately 1 in 17 billion. The pattern suggests significance. Vivek felt the weight of command pressing down on his exoskeleton. Prepare the pulse emitter, he finally ordered. Target their quantum shielding matrix. Minimum effective yield. I want their systems disabled, not destroyed. Captain Chen stood before the observation portal in her temporary quarters aboard the alien vessel, gazing at the distant blue curve of Earth. The room's organic architecture, walls that seemed to breathe of luminescent patterns that shifted in response to her movements, reinforced her sense of being somewhere profoundly other. A soft chime announced Major Okonkwo's arrival. "Security sweep complete, Captain," he reported. "They've given us access to non-critical areas only. All sensitive sections are blocked by what appear to be biometric barriers." And Dr. Sato, currently interfacing with their biological database terminal, Okonkwo replied. "Her neural implants are collecting as much data as possible without triggering their security systems." Chen nodded, her reflection grim in the transparent portal. "Your assessment, Major." Okonkwo considered carefully before responding. "They're hiding something. The way they dance around questions about other species, their insistence on development stages and ethical thresholds, it feels like a rationalization." "For what?" "Control," Okonkwo stated simply. "They've been the dominant force in this sector for thousands of years. They've developed protocols and justifications for determining which species get to join their club, and when." Chen turned from the portal. "And we've upset their tidy classification system. We've terrified them," Okonkwo corrected. "Did you notice how their skin patterns changed when we mentioned competition? They evolved through cooperation, planet-wide consensus building, and gradual advancement. The idea of progress driven by conflict is alien to them in the most fundamental sense." Chen's neural implant chimed softly. "Dr. Sato is requesting immediate conference," she announced, activating her secure communicator. "Report, Doctor." Dr. Sato's voice came through clearly, tight with urgency. "Captain, I've managed to access partial records of their observations. There's something you need to know immediately." "Go ahead." "Earth isn't the only human world they've been monitoring," Sato revealed. "They've identified 17 colonies within a 30-light-year radius of Sol." Chen and Okonkwo exchanged shocked glances. The United Earth Alliance had established only 7 official colonies. "That's impossible," Chen stated flatly. "We don't have 17 colonies. According to their data, we do," Sato insisted. "And what's more, they've classified these colonies as independent developmental threads. They think they're observing parallel evolution of similar species." Okonkonko's expression darkened. They don't know about the diaspora. Exactly, Sato confirmed. They have no concept of our history. The ideological splits, the corporate breakaways, the religious exodus missions, they're pattern matching based on their own evolutionary experience, and it's leading them to catastrophically wrong conclusions. Chen felt a cold certainty settle over her. They're going to try something. Alert the Prometheus. Full defensive protocols. We need... The deck beneath them shuddered violently as alarms began to sound throughout the alien vessel. The lighting shifted from ambient blue to pulsing red as the ship's systems responded to some emergency. What the hell was that? Chen demanded, already moving toward the door. Her communicator crackled. Captain, Lieutenant Park's voice came through, nearly lost in static. The alien vessel just fired some kind of quantum disruption pulse at us. Our shields held, but they're attempting to break orbit. Consequences for the Prometheus? Chen demanded, breaking into a run with Okonkwo beside her. Minimal damage. But Puck hesitated. Captain, something's happening to their ship. The pulse rebounded off our adaptive shields and hit them at 10 times the initial intensity. Their systems are cascading into failure. As Chen and Okonkwo raced through corridors now filled with panicking alien crew members, the ship lurched again, more violently. Through viewport panels, Chen could see the crystalline hull of the luminous inquiry beginning to fracture, spiderweb cracks spreading across its surface. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with Thevik and Vagan Rhodes, who were frantically working at an emergency control panel. What did you do? Chen demanded. Thezivik's compound eyes fixed on her, mandibles clicking in agitation. Defensive measure, miscalculation. The pulse reflected back at amplified intensity. Our containment systems are failing. Meaning what, exactly? Riel's skin had blanched almost completely white. Meaning the quantum singularity that powers our vessel is destabilizing. If it collapses completely, the resulting implosion will create a temporary tear in space-time. Captain, Okonkwo interjected urgently, we need to get back to the Prometheus immediately. Chen ignored him, focusing on Thivik. Can you stabilize it? Not without access to concordance emergency protocols, the alien admitted. Our communications array was damaged in the feedback surge. We cannot contact our fleet. Chen made a split-second decision. Dr. Sato, she barked into her communicator, return to the Prometheus immediately, and prepare the quantum stabilization array. Captain Okonkwo objected. Protocol forbids sharing that technology with... I'm aware of the protocol, Major, Chen cut him off, but I'm not prepared to watch 2,000 sentient beings die because of a misunderstanding. She turned back to Thizivok. We have technology that might help. Will you accept our assistance? Thivik's antennae quivered with indecision. 17,000 years of concordance protocol warring with imminent extinction. Yes, he finally said. The Prometheus's shuttle bay had been hastily converted into an emergency operations center. Dr. Sato stood before a complex array of equipment that had been connected via makeshift interfaces to crystalline components, salvaged from the luminous inquiry. Captain Chen watched from the periphery as human and alien technicians worked side by side, the immediate threat of destruction overriding centuries of protocol and suspicion. They never anticipated encountering a species with reflection-capable shields, Okonkwo observed quietly. Their entire defensive doctrine is based on the assumption that any pre-integration species would be vulnerable to their technology. They've been the apex predator for too long, Chen replied. Made them complacent. Across the bay, the Zivik conferred with Zivaziks, their gestures becoming increasingly agitated. Finally, the theological advisor approached Chen, religious markings pulsing in patterns that suggested extreme distress. Captain Chen, Zivaziks began formally. I must share critical information that Overseer Thizivik has authorized me to reveal. I'm listening. The quantum singularity destabilization has created a cascade effect in subspace, the alien explained. Our sensors detect distortion patterns propagating throughout the sector at superluminal speeds. Meaning, the 17 human colonies we've been observing will detect these distortions within days. The pattern is unmistakable. It will be recognized as evidence of Concordance presence. Chen felt a chill run down her spine, and the significance of that. Zivizix's religious markings dimmed to a deep indigo. Captain, the Concordance has adhered to observation-only protocols for all human settlements because your species' advancement curve defies our understanding. The Concordance High Command has been divided on how to respond to your existence. Divided how? Some advocate for accelerated integration, others, Zivijix hesitated, others advocate for containment protocols. The implication hung in the air between them. Preemptive neutralization, Chen translated flatly. Only as a theoretical option, Zivijix insisted. But if 17 independent human settlements simultaneously discover Concordance presence in their respective systems, after millennia of believing themselves alone, they'll assume the worst, Chen finished grimly, and they'll respond accordingly. The oldest colonies have had centuries to develop along their own technological trajectories, Okonkwo added, comprehension dawning. Some of them may have military capabilities that even we don't know about. Reels joined them, his exoskeleton still pale with stress. There's more, he said quietly. Our long-range sensors detected quantum distortion patterns consistent with human technology at the galactic core. Patterns that suggest a scale of engineering beyond anything in Concordance records. Impossible, Chen said automatically. We don't have any presence at the galactic core. Rails's compound eyes fixed on her. According to our observations, someone with human quantum signatures is building something at the galactic core. Something massive. And now they'll know about us. Chen stared at the alien. The implications expanding outward like ripples in still water. Not just Earth and its official colonies. Not just the breakaway settlements. Something far more vast. Far more significant. A human presence at the galactic core itself. Operating at technological levels that even the Concordance couldn't comprehend. The pattern unfolds. Zivizix whispered, religious markings pulsing with what might have been awe or terror. The question is no longer whether humanity will join the galactic community, Captain Chen. What is the question? Chen asked, though she suspected she already knew. Whether there will be a galactic community left for you to join, Zivizix answered, or whether humanity will remake it in your image. In the center of the shuttle bay, the salvaged components from the luminous inquiry began to pulse with renewed energy as Dr. Sato's team succeeded in stabilizing the quantum signature. A crisis averted and a far greater one just beginning. The observation deck of the Prometheus hung in silence as representatives from both species stared at the holographic display hovering between them. It showed a three-dimensional rendering of the galaxy, with 17 points of light representing human colonies scattered throughout the local sector. At the center, a pulsing red marker indicated the galactic core and the mysterious human presence detected there. Captain Chen studied the faces around her, human and alien alike, registering the tension that crackled between them. The temporary alliance forged in crisis remained fragile, built on necessity rather than trust. The quantum distortion wave will reach the nearest human colony within 12 hours, Dr. Sato reported, neural implants flickering as she processed real-time data. The farthest within 4 days. Once detected, they'll recognize it as evidence of non-human technology, and they'll respond defensively, Major Okonkwo added grimly. The Vivek's compound eyes shifted between the human officers, his exoskeletal plates clicking softly as he processed the implications. You speak with certainty about colonies that, according to your own admission, broke away from central authority centuries ago. How can you predict their responses? Chen exchanged a glance with Okonkwo before answering. Because human history has taught us that isolation breeds paranoia, Major. These colonies left Earth during periods of extreme ideological division. Most of them will have built their societies around the fear of external intervention. The corporate settlements will activate their automated defense grids. Okonkwo elaborated. The religious exodus colonies will interpret the signal as confirmation of their doomsday prophecies. The ideological breakaways will assume it's Earth trying to reassert control. Kezan's antennae quivered with agitation. Then we must send concordance vessels to each location immediately. Explain the situation. Prevent misunderstanding. With respect, Sub-Overseer. Okonkwo countered. The sudden appearance of alien vessels in 17 systems simultaneously would only confirm their worst fears. It would guarantee conflict. The holographic display shifted as Ralsum manipulated the controls, highlighting the pulsing marker at the galactic core. What concerns me more is this presence. The alien scientist said the quantum signature is unmistakably human in origin, yet the scale suggests technological capabilities far beyond anything we've observed from Earth or its official colonies. We have no presence at the galactic core, Chen insisted again, but with less certainty than before. No official mission, no authorized colony, yet something bearing human quantum signatures is there. Reels pressed. Something vast, and the distortion wave will reach it within hours. Theological advisor Zivitz, who had remained silent during the exchange, suddenly stepped forward. His religious markings pulsed with intensity as he addressed the gathering. "There's a matter I must bring to this council," he announced formally. "A matter of concordance religious history that may be relevant to our situation." Kazan made a dismissive gesture. "This is hardly the time for—" "Let him speak," the Zivik interrupted, surprising everyone. Zivicic inclined his head gratefully toward his superior before continuing. 12,000 years ago, when the founding species of the Concordance achieved interstellar capability, they encountered evidence of a civilization that had preceded them, one that had spanned the galaxy but vanished without explanation. The predecessors, Rels clarified for the humans' benefit, a semi-mythical advanced species mentioned in our earliest records. Not mythical, Zivicic corrected firmly. Real. They left behind artifacts, quantum resonance technology beyond even our current understanding. Technology that formed the basis for the Concordance's first interstellar drives. Chen leaned forward slightly, and the relevance to our current situation. The predecessor's technology bore distinct quantum signatures, Zivich explained. Signatures that our instruments were programmed to recognize and catalog. Signatures that over 12,000 years of exploration we have never encountered again, until now. A heavy silence fell over the observation deck. "You're saying the quantum signatures you detected at the galactic core match these predecessors?" Chen asked finally. "No," Cividix replied. "Religious markings pulsing with what might have been reverence or fear. I'm saying they match a fusion of predecessor technology with human quantum patterns." Okonkwo's expression darkened. "That's impossible. We've never encountered alien technology, let alone assimilated it. Unless," Dr. Sato interjected thoughtfully, "we're thinking about this from the wrong temporal perspective." All eyes turned to her as she continued, fingertips tracing patterns in the air as her neural implants processed calculation. The quantum distortion wave travels through subspace at superluminal speeds, but it's still bound by certain constraints. It will take approximately 36 hours to reach the galactic core. "Your point, Doctor," Thesivic prompted. "My point is that we're assuming linear causality," Sato explained. "But what if the human presence at the galactic core isn't contemporary with us? What if it's from our future?" Before anyone could respond to this startling hypothesis, the ship's AI chimed in urgently. "Captain, priority transmission incoming from Earth Command. Admiral Takahashi requesting immediate secure conference." Chang straightened her uniform. "Put him through." The holographic display shifted, replacing the galactic map with the stern visage of Admiral Takahashi. His weathered face betrayed no emotion as he regarded the unusual gathering. "Captain Chen," he acknowledged curtly. "I see our guests are present." "Good. This concerns them as well." "Admiral," Chen replied formally, "we were just discussing the quantum distortion event and its potential impact on—" "That's why I'm contacting you," Takahashi interrupted. 17 minutes ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected an unusual signal propagating from the galactic core. It appears to be a response to the quantum distortion wave. Chen felt her pulse quicken. "A response? From whom?" "Unknown," Takahashi admitted, "but the signal contains embedded data packets. Our systems just finished decrypting the first one." He paused, his expression grim. "It's addressed to you, Captain. To you and the representatives of the Concordance specifically." The observation deck fell silent as the holographic display shifted again, now showing a simple text message floating in the space between them. "Quantum distortion detected. Convergence protocols initiated. Stand by for emergency transmission from Human Concordance Joint Defense Command. TINPAB 24. Okonkwo was the first to break the stunned silence. 2040-87. That's over 400 years from now. "Impossible," Kazan declared. "Exoskeletal plates, clicking in agitation. Time-dimensional communication violates fundamental physics. Unless," Relzal suggested hesitantly, "the predecessor technology Zivisics mentioned allowed for it." Before the debate could continue, the holographic display flickered and transformed once more. A figure materialized in the center of the observation deck, a human woman wearing a uniform unlike anything Chen had seen before, with subtle concordance design elements integrated into its structure. Beside her stood what appeared to be a concordance official, though its exoskeleton showed evidence of technological enhancements that the Zivix species had never developed. "This is High Commander Eliza Chen Kanzan of the Joint Defense Command," the human announced, her eyes scanning the gathered representatives as if she could actually see them. "Year 2040-87, transmitting to initial contact event, year 2085. Authentication code, Sierra Tango 790 Echo Delta." Captain Chen felt the blood drain from her face as she recognized the surname of the figure, a hybrid of her own and the Concordance sub-overseers. A descendant, an evolution of their species' cooperation with me, is Concordance first voice, Physivic lineage, Sentinel. The woman continued. "We have limited bandwidth for this temporal transmission, so I will be brief. What you are experiencing now, your meeting, your conflict, your temporary alliance, is a pivotal moment in galactic history, a moment we have studied extensively." The Concordance figure stepped forward. "The quantum distortion event you inadvertently triggered has revealed your positions to the Harbingers," it stated, voice modulated in a way no current Concordance vocal apparatus could achieve. "They have remained dormant at the edges of the galaxy for millennia, awaiting evidence of our combined technological signatures." "Who are the Harbingers?" Vizivic demanded, though he couldn't be certain the transmission could hear him. To everyone's surprise, the holographic figures reacted. "The species you call predecessors did not vanish." "Overseer Thivic," the enhanced Concordance figure replied. "They were driven to the galactic rim by something they could not defeat. Something they could only flee. The Harbingers enter galaxies, consume all sentient life, and move on. They have done this in countless galaxies before ours. In our timeline," Commander Chen Kansan continued, "your accidental quantum pulse and its aftermath led to centuries of conflict between humans and the Concordance. By the time we realized the Harbingers had awakened, it was nearly too late. 3/4 of all sentient species in the galaxy had been extinguished before we finally united. The installation you've detected at the galactic core," the Concordance figure added, "is our temporal transmitter, a final desperate measure. We cannot change our past directly, but we can send you this warning: unite now, or face extinction separately. This is absurd, Kezan interjected. Even if what you claim is true, the concordance and humanity have fundamentally different evolutionary paths, different values, different strength, Commander Chen Shenzhen cut in. Exactly. The concordance's stability, ethical frameworks, and 12,000 years of accumulated knowledge, combined with humanity's adaptability, competitive drive, and technological innovation, apart, each proved vulnerable to the harbingers. Together, we might have had a chance from the beginning. The transmission began to flicker, the figures distorting slightly. Bandwidth failing, the concordance figure announced. Final data packet transmitting now. The holographic display filled with streams of technical data, design schematics, mathematical formulas, strategic assessments, information no current human or concordance scientist could have devised independently. One last thing, Commander Chen Qian said, her image stabilizing momentarily. The question you haven't asked yet is the right one. Why would the harbingers wait? Why not attack immediately upon detecting sentient life? The concordance figure's enhanced exoskeleton pulsed with illumination patterns that Thizevik had never seen before. Because they are not simply predators, it explained. They are farmers. They seed galaxies with the potential for intelligent life, then harvest that intelligence once it reaches a certain threshold. They do not want our technology or our resources. They want our minds, Commander Chen Kamzhon finished grimly. Our creativity, our unique neural patterns. They incorporate them into their collective consciousness before moving to the next galaxy. The transmission distorted further, breaking up into fragments of static. We've sent you everything we can, Commander Chen Khan's voice came through, increasingly broken. Defensive technologies, star charts of Harbinger outer rim bases, integration protocols for human concordance joint operations. Use them. Unite. Survive. Remember, the concordance figure added as the transmission faded. Evolution is not a ladder but a branching tree. There is no apex species, only convergent adaptation. The holographic display collapsed into darkness, leaving the observation deck in stunned silence. 3 days later, Captain Chen stood before the viewport in her private quarters, watching as the crystalline concordance vessel Luminous Inquiry hovered alongside the Prometheus. Emergency repairs had stabilized its quantum core, but the real work, the work that would determine the fate of both their species, was just beginning. The door chimed softly. Enter, Chen called, not turning from the viewport. Kozivik stepped into the room, his exoskeleton gleaming under the ambient lighting. The Joint Integration Council is assembled, Captain. They await our report. Chen nodded, still gazing at the stars. 400 years, she mused. In their timeline, it took us 4 centuries of conflict before we finally united against the Harbingers. By then, most sentient life in the galaxy had been consumed. And now we have the opportunity to change that outcome, Kozivik observed. If we can convince our respective authorities to believe us, Chen replied. If we can overcome millennia of evolutionary programming that tells your species to advance through consensus and mine to advance through competition. Kozivik moved to stand beside her at the viewport, his compound eyes reflecting the distant starlight. The concordance has existed for 9,000 years without significant change to our fundamental protocols, he said quietly. The idea of accelerated adaptation through alliance with a competitive species, it challenges everything we believe about evolutionary stability, and yet here we are, Chen responded, finally turning to face him. The universe placed our species on different evolutionary paths, but aimed us at the same destination. Your people evolved empathy and cooperation to survive on a world with limited resources. Mine evolved competition and innovation to survive on a world of abundance and danger. Different solutions to different problems, Thizivik acknowledged. But neither solution alone is sufficient for what's coming, Chen concluded. The future version of your colleague Zivazik said it best. There is no apex species, only convergent adaptation. Zivic's antennae twitched in what Chen had come to recognize as amusement, an interesting philosophical perspective from a religious figure. My species has always viewed evolution as a ladder to be climbed, methodically. Yours seems to treat it more as a landscape to be conquered. Both metaphors are flawed, Chen replied. Evolution isn't a ladder or a conquest. It's a response to challenges, and now both our species face the same challenges. Her communicator chimed softly. The council is growing impatient, Captain, Major Okonkwo's voice reported. We're on our way, Chen responded before turning back to Civic, ready to make history, overseer. The Civic performed the formal concordance gesture of respect, a movement Chen now recognized as their highest acknowledgement of an equal. Not history, Captain Chen, he replied. Future. As they walked together toward the conference chamber, Chen reflected on the strange symmetry of their situation, two species, evolving separately across vast gulfs of space and time, different in almost every biological and cultural aspect, yet brought together by a shared threat and a message from their own descendants. Perhaps the true apex fallacy wasn't believing your species stood at the evolutionary pinnacle. Perhaps it was believing any species could evolve to face the universe's challenges alone. Behind them, through the viewport, the stars continued their cold, distant burning, oblivious to the civilizations rising and falling beneath their light, unaware of the darkness gathering at the galaxy's edge, waiting to consume them all. Unless, together, they could find another way.